Welcome back to Modern Homestead Alaska. Today is finally the Q&A where we answer your burning questions. Join us. Welcome to our vlog. We are the Minimalist family. We started building a modern homestead outside of Wasilla, Alaska in the summer of 2021. That's my husband, Aaron. I am Jessica, a stay-at-home wife and mom. Our second son, Caleb, lives here with us, along with our daughter, Cody Ann, and the youngest of our family, Wyatt. We brought our two dogs, Tipper and Daisy, and got a new addition, the Alaska dog, Roberto. All right, one of the first questions we're going to answer, and I'm pretty sure it was directed towards me, is why YouTube? And by answering that, I can get to some of the more popular questions. So when I left my job, which, believe it or not, I used to work with Aaron, I knew I was leaving my job. YouTube is kind of a creative outlet. I also knew that we were completely crazy, or at least a lot of people told us, I wish I could do that, I wish I was brave enough, whatever the case is. And I thought, if we can do this, if we can quit jobs, throw caution to the wind, and move halfway across the country in chase of a dream, that others could possibly be encouraged to do the same, to chase their dreams. So that really was the main reason behind the channel. The second reason behind the channel was we wanted to document. So we've never had the opportunity to build a home, let alone everything we've always dreamed of. We have the ability to have, with the exception of horses and cattle, here on this Alaskan homestead. And we wanted to document this process. Our children are getting older, they are starting to leave home, all of those things. And I just wanted those memories. I wanted to be able to look back and see, what did this room look like before we built it? What did we do? What were the challenges? And pretty much just have that kind of that history lesson of our family as a gift to ourselves, our children, grandchildren, and so on. So that is how we started and kind of why we started. And last of the YouTube questions is, I have no equipment. So when the lighting's wrong or the things aren't working out well, I have one GoPro and I make all of the videos on a tablet. Don't even have a computer, so I don't have any of that fancy equipment. Maybe someday the channel will grow enough, we can invest in those things, but as of right now, that is all we use to make our YouTube videos, is a single GoPro. Pictures are taken on cell phones, we don't even have like a camera, and then all of it is uploaded into a free app, which is iMovie, on my Apple tablet, and then that's where all the videos come from. The next question, we got a lot of questions on our children and how did they feel about the move? What are their thoughts? Where's our oldest child? And I should tell you that in the very beginning, we made a couple of videos and I just didn't know how to basically protect my family, do right by them, and then also share us with the world, basically, and to put things out there. So as far as our children go, we set a few rules. And the rules are, number one, we never shame our children on this channel because they will not always be 16, 18, 19, 21 years old. They will grow into adults. And so if we shamed them, talking about mistakes or bad things that they do or whatever, they aren't then given the opportunity to live past that, to grow past that. So that's one of the rules. The other rule is they are given editing power. So in the beginning, the children were very involved. They wanted to see the videos ahead of time before they were posted. They wanted to see how we were representing them or showing them to the world. And they were given the opportunity to say, take that out, don't post that, I don't want to share that, so on. And we still, Caleb, we still give them that power today. We do not want to put anything out there about our kids or anything of their lives that they are not comfortable sharing. And then we also, Aaron and I, choose some things not to share about our children that they may be okay with sharing, because we don't always think they have the maturity and the foresight to see how that could affect them later. So those are some of the rules with our kids and why what is shown is shown. Okay, your burning question about our oldest child and why we just mentioned that we have one. Well, first of all, because we do, and he is our child, and we are parents of 4. And I'm just going to tell you exactly what that child said as to why he's never part of the channel. He says, this is his exact words, "I'm off at college and don't live at home anymore, and I didn't help build the house, and I haven't been part of it." He also tells people, because he gets asked the same thing or same question when someone knows who he is and who we are, says, "I also tell them I completely support your page, and I ask that they support it too." So that is from him, is saying, hey, I completely support it. I'm not here. I'm off at college. I'm not part of anything going on. And because the channel is about us building a homestead here in Alaska, and he is not part of that, that is the only reason that we don't talk about him and we let him live his life. The other thing is, he says to remind you that just like in Duck Dynasty, the oldest brother was not part of that show, and that did not mean that the parents don't love him or want him to be part of things. It just meant that that child wasn't part of what they were doing. Keep in mind, you see between 20 and 30 minutes of our life a couple of times a week, and obviously that doesn't encompass everything about us as a family. So that is where our oldest child is, off at college, doing his own thing. He's not part of this. The next question you all are burning to know the answer to is, what does Aaron do for a living? So, Aaron, what do you do?
I'm a field operations manager for a construction company. We do structural repair, and we do coatings and like that on structures that are needing to be repaired. So I've been doing that for last 18 years. Been working with a company I worked for most of it was Restruction Corporation out of Colorado, and they were a very good company. And when we decided to move here, obviously I had to leave that company, but I did find another company up here that does relatively the same thing, and that was a blessing. So can continue on with my career that way.
All right, Caleb, Kathy wants to know, how is the eye?
It's all right. Gonna be able to see.
He's totally fine. All right, next question. Build Your Home says, how did you and your husband meet? How many siblings are in both of your families? What are your top 5 most important things to have on hand in an emergency when you're stuck at home and can't leave? First of all, Aaron and I met through my sister. She was friends with him, his brother, his roommate, and so on. And she convinced me to go over there one night, and that is just a random night we met. Love at first sight, right, babe?
Oh yeah, of course.
It better have been. So we just met through my sister. We both lived in Littleton, and we actually were about 1 road apart from each other. We were in our very, very, very early 20s when we met, and we have been together ever since. As far as siblings go, just like Myself, except for exact opposite, I am one of 4. I am number 2 in line, and there's 3 girls and 1 boy. Aaron is number 1 in line of 3 boys. We're gonna touch on a little bit of the emergency part of that question, and I think that kind of carries into talking a little bit of how we're almost an off-grid homestead. And you wouldn't believe it when you see the size of the house and those sort of things. It's a common misconception, I would think, that folks don't seem to understand that you can live off-grid or very close to off-grid, and you don't have to be in kind of a one-room tiny house or cabin, something like that. So the only thing on grid we are is electric. So we do have power to our house, and we love the thought.
It's the only way I can get the children to come.
Our kids weren't gonna have it being like that whole, we don't live that way, and you don't have to here in Alaska, I guess is the thing. So our house is heated through wood. That's what, let me pan you around, they are doing. Aaron built this big wood shed. They're stacking all this wood in here. Over here on the side of the house, you can see one of the pipes. The other is the wood cook stove. We heat our house from wood. The pellet stove you see that I've done a review on, that is backup. That is for emergencies. Well, not power outage emergencies, but like if I needed to go to Anchorage for the day, Anchorage is an hour and a half from us, and I wouldn't be here to deal with the fires and so on, and I can run that pellet stove on low for almost 48 hours. So that is something that would just keep the house from freezing, and we use it as backup, and we definitely use it in the summer, the spring, the fall, when we really don't want to heat the whole house with wood heat. So we do keep plenty of pellets. The other thing is our propane. Actually, Caleb and I did all of that, what is it called, Caleb? What did we put on that propane tank?
Some firewood block stops, some real handy.
Caleb, what is it called? What is that thing called that's on a regulator? Aaron answered. Caleb and I built, Aaron was in Arizona for work, and we had water finally hooked up to the house one day, and they would not service us for propane or gas out where we're at. And we had to figure out a way to heat the water. So our water heater is propane, and we wanted hot water because we wanted to shower inside for the first time in months. And Caleb and I had this little contraption built, and it has worked out great. And so we have 4 propane tanks like that we keep stocked and filled, but we have to haul the propane tank back and forth ourselves in order to get propane.
Yeah, what do you mean?
We'll go with crystals, but we've had similar questions, so hopefully this answers several people. How are you finding living in Alaska? Is it everything you expected? Any regrets about the move? Aaron?
I love it here. So no regrets. I've wanted to live here since I was a little kid. I finally got it to come to fruition, so absolutely not. I'm loving it. Every time you turn around, there's a new adventure, another beautiful place. Just non-stop things to do. I love to be outside doing things, so it's this perfect place. If you're not an outdoors person, it's probably not the place for you, because you will just hole up in your house and just stay there. But living outside, it's what we all dream of in this family, so it works out really well.
Yeah, and if I had to answer that, I would honestly say it is better than expected for me, for sure. I thought the winters would be worse than they were, and according to everyone up here, we just had one of the worst winters that they've experienced. We expected it to be cold. It did not disappoint. It was cold, expected snow, did not disappoint. It snowed, and we came mentally, physically, emotionally prepared for that sort of thing. And so I love it, and I actually find that I don't want to leave. Like even for vacations and going places and things like that, we don't actually like leaving Alaska now. We've become weird. We love it here. So that's our answer. Everything we expected and more, no regrets. So we get a lot of questions about affording to live in Alaska, and does Alaska pay you to live here? Well, not us. They haven't paid us to live here yet. You have to be here on January 1st for an entire full year before you get paid to live in Alaska, and all of that has something to do with the oil and everything else. So yes, you can get paid to live in Alaska. No, we've never received money. The thing is, the government, it's not their job to subsidize if you choose to live in a remote part of the country that you have to access by boat or plane or those sort of things. And so no, our government or our country doesn't subsidize any of that if you choose to have everything shipped to you by boat or plane. The other thing, I guess, that those questions kind of go into is homesteading. No, you don't get free land in Alaska anymore. So don't think you can come up here and get some sort of free homestead land. That was a program way back in the very beginning during the World War II era where people were able to get free land and homesteads here in Alaska. That doesn't exist to our knowledge anymore. There's a ton of questions financially about Alaska. Aaron and I don't even tell our own family what kind of finances Aaron makes, and so we're gonna keep our personal finances to ourselves because we can and we will. But there is every walk of life here. So if you are concerned as to whether you can afford to live in Alaska, of course you can afford to live in Alaska. What kind of life are you looking for? That would be more of a question for you. Is your profession here in Alaska? Well, of course, I wouldn't know that. We know the profession that Aaron's in and the things that our children do, and so we could answer very basic questions on that, but we, of course, wouldn't know all the different professions. So my suggestion would be, if you're interested, is go online, put in your profession, and say, jobs doing whatever in Alaska, or how much does this pay in Alaska, and kind of find those answers for yourself, because everyone's situation is different, and it would be really hard for us to answer. And of course, not everyone, there's only one field operations manager at Aaron's work, so not everyone can have the exact same position or the exact same job. So with all that, I really can't help you. Sorry. All right, another one about our personal history. Someone said, since we're talking about finances, says, you mentioned being broke once, and how did we get back on our feet? Well, of course we were broke. Our families didn't have finances to give us. And by the time I was 25 years old, I was pregnant with our 4th child. So I had him just after my 26th birthday. So of course we were extremely poor. We had 4 kids by the time I was 26 years old. And we got back on our feet because Aaron is a workaholic. He worked and 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 worked. And we were introduced to the Dave Ramsey program by my sister several years back. And we learned to not go into debt, and to, if you don't have the cash to pay for it, you can't have it. So we lived that way for a very long time. And then another way that we did it is I learned, and those are some of the things that I'm teaching you on this channel, is we ate a lot of beans. We don't complain. We would say the kids don't know that hot dogs and macaroni and cheese are terrible. And and that is how we had to eat. So we did what we could and what we had to do, and we just buckled down, and I kept the home fire burning, basically, so to speak, and Aaron went to work, and we just made sure that in our home, our opinion and the way that we behaved was, unless it was dire, which some of our kids had like a major hospital stay or something like that, unless it was dire, Aaron didn't take off work. He just continued to work. And that is how we have managed, in part, to make it to where we are. The other thing that we did is Aaron is incredibly gifted at construction, and his ability to build is top notch. And so when we would buy a house, we would completely remodel, sell the house for a profit, take that profit, roll it into the next house, and so on. And that's how we ended up being able to afford this house, is based on several houses that we did big remodels, made profits on, and then rolled all of that into this house. All right, so that this doesn't run on forever and ever, a lot of you want to know why Wasilla, and how close Aaron is to work, and why this homestead. So we're going to answer those really quickly. So the first trip, I guess, to Alaska, I should start with, Aaron and I fished all the way from Fairbanks to the Anchorage area and then down to the Kenai Peninsula because we wanted to see what Alaska had to offer. The following year, the whole COVID thing happened, and we sold our house. We actually came here to just buy, like, hopefully a retirement place when we retired, or someplace we could homestead, but we were kind of looking for a vacation type homestead in Alaska, and we decided that we wanted to be near enough to services. So I don't want to have to fly or get on a train or any of that, which are modes of transportation here, in order to get to a grocery store. I wanted to be near enough that I could access those things. And when we came, we looked everywhere, from the Kenai Peninsula all the way up into this area. Because of what Aaron does for work, we knew that he would be able to work here if we had ever made that decision. But keep in mind, we didn't plan on making that decision. We didn't like anything in the 10 days. And we happened upon a box that was just framed. I don't know what it was about it, but we drove by, and you can't see the house or the lake or anything from the road. And we just stood at the end of the driveway, and something inside of us just knew this was the place for us. And we came and saw the house, went through a very long process of making offers, getting rejections, having to have everything bid, could we afford it, what could we do? And it took months, right, before we were truly under contract to close on this house. But we knew it was the one for us. It's very hard to explain, but it also was a very difficult decision, because it wasn't our intention to move to Alaska, but we knew in order to buy this house, this homestead, that Aaron would have to give up his job, I would have to quit my job, and we would have to move our family here in order to afford it. So we found it on Zillow, drove by, had an appointment to come and look at the house, and just knew that it was the one for us. We took that crazy leap of faith and just trusted that this was God directing us through all the ups and downs. It all continued to just line out and fall into place, and we were able to get this homestead here. So that's kind of how we ended up with this property and Alaska. I have been trying to answer some of these questions. Let's see. Next one. What do you hope to build your homestead up to? how do you handle winters? What are the kids' thoughts on the adventure? And what are things you never expected to have to deal with that you would warn others about? Okay, so first question there, what do we hope to build it up to? We hope to get everything finished. So like finish the basement, get steps to the basement, get the garage finished out. Those sort of things, build the whole garden area. And then we really just want to do some cleanup, and we have a porch that we need to build off of the back. So like a back deck. So we don't hope to build it so big that we can't enjoy all the things that Alaska has to offer. So we're hoping to get it finished so we can enjoy a little bit more of what Alaska has to offer. The other thing is, how do I handle the cold or the winters up here? I'm allergic to the cold. I'll write the name of what the actual true condition is. And the way that I handle that is I never leave home without things to keep me warm. I have actual like beehive, they look like bee sting reactions to the cold. Like I hive up really bad, and it can turn, like if I were to try to swim in the ocean, it could be anaphylactic. Like it could kill me if I got that cold, but I never get that cold. Something that also helps with that cold for me personally is cold therapy. And that is by allowing myself to go outside and get colder, colder, colder without immediately covering up and not allowing myself to hide. I've had these almost my whole life, so I know how to control this reaction. I just use really, really good winter gear. I'm going to try and ask the kids, but every other day, for some of them, it's up and down, this adventure. You know, we made the choice. We honored a request that Caleb had, which was he wanted to finish his senior year in Arizona for sports reasons, and we did allow him to do that. We moved here after. Cody knew going into her junior year in high school that she would be moving her senior year. And then Wyatt, it's up and down. But what is amazing is Caleb and Cody have really, even though now that they're graduated and they could move on, both of them have found reasons to be happy here in Alaska. Caleb was not originally going to come. He wanted to graduate high school and go do his own thing. He made one trip to Alaska, completely changed his mind. And he was like waist deep snow, the whole 9 yards. Like Aaron's like, oh, it couldn't have been gone worse. And it couldn't have gone better because he fell in love with Alaska just like we did. Cody thinks it's beautiful. She has found reasons and things to be grateful for, even though a move like this your senior year can be very, very difficult. She excelled. She was on the honor roll, had a 4.0 her senior year. She managed several sporting teams, played sports herself. So she really got involved and made some really, really good friends. And I think all of that and having a strong family unit has made it easy. Wyatt is still in high school, so he got here his sophomore year. He's now in his junior year of high school, and he's been on a state champion football team and placed at high school state wrestling, and you know, has made a ton of good friends as well, and has people to hang out with and things like that to do. And I think all of that helps with an adventure like this. Aaron and I answered this question of what would we warn people about who are maybe moving here for the first time. Our only biggest warning, well, it would be twofold. Number one, come mentally prepared. Alaska is cold. We have long winters. It snows a lot. And if you don't come mentally prepared for that, it can eat you up. We came excited for those things. We wanted those things, and we look forward to them even now. And so mentally we were ready. The thing that we least expected and that we would warn others is in Alaska, it's hard to get things here. And then the systems as far as like recycling and trash and so on isn't like it is in the lower 48. There aren't a lot of options. And so people hold on to a lot more up here than they do in the lower 48. And what is your idea of maybe a property that's been cleaned out and that you see it as trash or things that you don't want is not necessarily going to be viewed the same. And so I think that was the biggest hiccup that we came across moving here. There is no building code where we are at. So even though our house is built to code for a bigger area and the bank and the whole 9 yards, most of the houses here are built, especially in this area, they build them for cash and it takes a long time. So if you can imagine building your house with the cash flow that you have, it's obviously going to be lived in. It's not up to code. So when you're purchasing a house, if that's something that is important to you, know that the area that we're in, there is no building code and they don't have to build that house according to what you may expect in the lower 48. So keep that in mind when looking up here. My percolator that you guys see, something strange, that was another question. We don't have an electric of any sort coffee pot. I really do use a percolator for my coffee every day. And in the summertime, I use it on the gas stove. In the wintertime, we use the wood stove to make the coffee in the percolator. A couple of reasons behind that. Number one, we want to live as close to if we were off grid or without power as possible on a daily basis, and it makes our life, in the event we aren't, or we are without power, it makes our life simpler. If we're used to just making coffee with a percolator, then we don't have the trash waste of either plastic pods or even you know, the filters or the whole 9 yards. We just have the coffee grounds, they go in the percolator, and then we're used to making our coffee that way. So it's no big deal, no matter where we're at, even camping, because that's the kind of coffee that we're used to. Mine's a vintage percolator that I got off of Etsy. So good luck. I'm sure that they have some other cute vintage ones out there as well. So that's another appliance that we just don't own. Along with, no one asked, but no one's probably noticed, we also don't own a toaster because they make a mess and you can just toast on broil, easy peasy. Cleanup is a cinch, and we do most of our toasting of breads kind of like you would grilled cheese. A little bit of butter, put it on the flat top, easy peasy. No toaster, no coffee pot, and no dishwasher. I said it, I'm gonna tell you why. No dishwasher. I know we built a brand new house and did not put a dishwasher in, and that was by design. As a mother of 4 and someone who cooks, you have seen the amount that I cook and I can and I process and I do in this kitchen. Why do I not have a dishwasher? I read an article before we built the house by a lady who said that there were several things created for women back in the 50s when the whole housewife thing, and they marketed to us that these would save us time or money. And one of the biggest wastes of our time in the kitchen is a dishwasher. Not only is it a waste of time, electricity and water, it also causes a lot of damage. It's one of the main appliances in your house that causes damage because you get slow leaks. The other thing is they grow mold and bacteria, so they really don't sterilize the way that you think that they sterilize. But what we found was she challenged, and I'm gonna challenge you. I challenge you, if you have dirty dishes in your sink on a regular basis, it's because you have a dishwasher. What we mentally do is we think, oh no, I forgot to turn on the dishwasher, or I'm gonna load these dishes in the dishwasher and then turn it on, and then I'll get to the rest of these later. So we constantly have dirty dishes that are needing to be loaded in the dishwasher. The other thing is we're taught to pre-wash our dishes. None of our dishwashers actually clean our dishes. They just spray them with hot water and waste electricity, water. So in the amount of time it takes you to hand wash your dish with water, if you just use soap and rinse it, you have done exactly what you are doing before you then load it into a dishwasher, run the dishwasher, and then wait for that thing to run and shut off. So we started testing this in the last house that we were in because we had lived in a rental. It was a really, really nasty dishwasher. It leaked. It had, you know, stuff had worn off, and the rust was causing like stains on my plates, and whoever's job it was to be doing dishes that week, I would come home every night. There would be all these dishes. Oh, I forgot to turn on the whole thing. Like I just told you, when we stopped using the dishwasher, we stopped having dirty dishes. So it takes me as long to wash our dishes and leave them on the drain board to dry, which I am notorious for. When you see a lot of the video at our house, we have clean, in fact, right now, I'll show you. I played dish Jenga, that's what we call this. All of those are clean. I hand washed all of them, and then I'm in the middle of making dinner, and so there's a couple of dishes in the sink, but by the time dinner goes on the table, all of my dishes will be done and put away, and then we have dinner dishes to wipe up, clean up, and the kitchen is done. So I challenge you, think it through, realize that if you just added soap while you're rinsing all of those dishes, you've just done the exact amount of work that it takes to hand wash all of your dishes, and you don't need a dishwasher. That's it. Okay, this one I actually want to answer. How are you good at DIY? I remember you saying you worked with your husband. Were you a contractor as well? Okay, so that's kind of a twofold question. I did business development. My job was to do lunch and learns. I ate out. I hung out with people. I took people to dinner. I met them at their workplace, and my job was to explain the benefits of hiring our company, what set us apart, why we were different, why we were the best, and try and convince people to hire us over others. So basically, I was like a lobbyist for a construction company. So I had to understand what we did, means and methods, why we did what we did, that whole thing. So that was my actual job. Before that, I taught kindergarten. And before that, I was a stay-at-home mom. I've done lots and lots of little things, retail, you name it. I've had all sorts of weird little jobs here and there. Why am I so good at DIY? Well, growing up, I wanted to be a combination of two people, Julia Child and Martha Stewart. I loved them. I loved them growing up. There was just something about them, and that was my biggest desire, is I wanted to be like that. I wanted to cook like Julia Child, and I wanted to do the crafts and the decorated home and the chickens and learn to fold a shirt properly and have that neat and tidy house that Martha Stewart had. And I loved both of their shows. We grew up in a culture where it became very looked down upon. And 2 years ago, Aaron and I finally caved. My whole life, what I wanted to be was a wife and a mom. And I had been told my whole life that just wasn't enough, wasn't good enough. What a waste of life. I needed an education. I needed to do all of these things to be successful. And we agree that was a lie then and a lie now, and that wasn't true for me. My call on my life, the whole reason I think I exist, is to be a wife and mom. And since I settled into that, I have the greatest joy in doing what I do every single day. I find so much joy decorating my house, cooking and cleaning and taking care of everyone and having everything decorated and pretty and put together. And this is it for me. This is what I wanted to be, who I wanted to be, and what I wanted to do. And as soon as I accepted that that is acceptable and it is enough, I am so happy. So that is how I learned to DIY, cook, clean, keep it all together around here. It's just the call on my life. It's what I'm meant to be. Okay, so we answered kind of similar, but where do you see yourself and your hubby in 10 years from now on the homestead? What would we do or want to accomplish as far as structures, high tunnel, dog kennel, fish wheel, any of that, none of the above, so on. Hi, Raven. So, like I said, we are just looking to finish what we have, but the biggest building that I haven't shared that we would like is we have designed an outdoor kitchen that we would like to build sooner rather than later. And it will double as a space where we could process large game, whether it be our own hogs or a moose. So it is a big structure that we have the piece of land picked out. It has an open view to the lake, the house, nothing obstructs it. And we do not build anything in that area because we want to build this big outdoor kitchen. And then it will have commercial type appliances in it, like stainless steel tables, and a commercial refrigerator and deep freeze and those sort of things. I envision for my sink a giant clawfoot bathtub that's set at sink height, so I can get all those vegetables, even the game and the fish and all those things in there to clean and wash and the whole 9 yards. But being able to process large amounts of food in an outdoor space that in the wintertime is completely closed up. In the summertime, it is screened and you can keep the bugs and flies. So we have this whole design idea in mind. We would love a high tunnel greenhouse, a growing area, something along those lines where we could have heat out there and it not be in our house, to be able to start seeds and so on. That will probably hit the list sooner rather than later. Hopefully in the next year or so we'll be able to have the greenhouse or the high tunnel and those sort of things, because being self-sufficient and growing our own produce and animals and those sort of things is really important to us, and it's why we moved here. And then we do hope to get hogs. We've always had them. The kids have raised several of them, and we would like, that's the one livestock that we are looking at come spring, getting that pre-order in and having several hogs that we will raise ourselves and then butcher those in order to produce all of the pork for an entire year for the homestead. So that is the big hopes and dreams around here. Someone wants to know a price for land, something similar to what we have. Ooh, if you're looking for river or lake view, lake access, it's going to run your price up. That was accidental. We weren't looking for that when we found the property. But now that we've kind of price compared some different things, it is gonna run you more if you wanted to be on a lake. You can't own water here in Alaska, but all the land around this lake is privately owned. So you would have to trespass in order to get on the lake, which is why we call it a private lake, although the water itself belongs to the public. So if you could access it through someone's property, you would be able to enjoy our lake. It wouldn't be private. So a piece of land like this, 5+ acres in the Matsu area, which is kind of where we're at, can run you upwards of $100,000 to $150,000 just for the land and road access. There's so many factors. So my suggestion is know what you want and the area you want, and start looking very specifically for what it is that you want. There's a ton of land here in Alaska that's only accessible by boat or snow machine or plane or something like that. And that plots of land like that are gonna be way, way, way cheaper. But because They maintain the road that leads to our house. We're really far back, so it's like the last on their list, but we have a school bus stop not too far from us, those sort of things. So if that's what you're looking for, is to be able to be closer to amenities such as hospitals, gas stations, grocery stores, those sort of things, is gonna cost you more money. If you just X'd the private lake access, it's what, $40,000 to $60,000, something like that, to buy yourself 5 acres in this general area. Do the kids have significant others? You'll never know until one of them is engaged to be married. At least I won't share that with you. And the reason is they're teenagers. Teenage relationships aren't always the most stable things on the planet. And even though they may have a boyfriend or girlfriend, we've just chosen not to mention that on here, so that if they do break up, we don't have to delete videos or make it like weird for a new relationship for them. So we just kind of keep that private. But the day one of them is engaged or getting married or having babies, we, with their blessing, will share that. But until then, we don't worry about teenage relationships. Hi, Donna. Donna has asked me about the vets and how far we're from Anchorage, utilities. Electric is expensive here, but come on, it's expensive everywhere. So my suggestion on that would just simply be whatever area of Alaska you want to be in, you would be able to look up an average bill and be able to factor that in. If you've already looked up how much you can make, do we have that kind of work here, and are the utilities? And of course, it's gonna be based on house size, the number of people that are living in there. There's just too many factors. But yes, the electric is expensive, but no, it's not as expensive as Arizona. I'll tell you that right now. In Arizona, we had $600 in the winter and $1,000 electric bill in the summer running those air conditioners. And our electric bill has never been over $200 here. As far as vet care goes, we've used 2 vets, one in Big Lake and then the emergency vet for Tipper, and we have gotten excellent care. In fact, if it's dogs that you're talking about, keep in mind, this is the home of the Iditarod. These vets, when it comes to dogs, a lot of them are top-notch vets who take care of top-notch athletes in the entire world. So when you're looking for dog care here in Alaska, you're probably got a pretty good chance of finding yourself a really, really good vet. So someone says, even though I'm new to Alaska, it's obvious that we're not new to prepping or canning or those sort of things. When did that journey start? So it started when Caleb was born almost 20 years ago. And what happened was, just days after I had him, we had a massive snowstorm that shut down Denver. So I had him in Littleton, Colorado, is where we lived at the time. And we couldn't get anywhere for days. It got to the point where Aaron had to hike to the 7-Eleven down the road, and it was like waist deep snow. They were only doing an emergency call. Anyway, we learned in Colorado that these natural disasters happen. And then the further we moved out of town and had animals and so on, it's more frequently that we would find ourselves in situations where we needed to be self-sufficient for longer periods of time. In Arizona, I've shared on here before, we lived close enough where I could like literally see a Walmart. And that answers someone's question, where all have we lived since Aaron and I have met? We've lived in Colorado, which is where we met, Arizona, and now Alaska. So in Arizona, I had stopped doing any of it because I could go to the store for anything that I needed. And we ended up turning this massive closet that was a TV cabinet into a pantry. And when 2020 happened, we could not get meat and several other things. And it made me mentally go back to the person I was, that even though we didn't have the snow and those sort of natural disasters, there could be other types of disasters that would cause us to need to eat and live off what we could get. And that whole thing, I know you're living under a rock. I'm just gonna say it, if you haven't learned from 2020 and you're not doing something now, because literally anything can happen that would cause us to have to live off of those stocks. All right, so this is a good one while I'm trying to do dinner. It talks about like being honest in that we can't get everything done. And she asks, how do we personally prioritize what work on each day, gardening, outdoor chores, normal household chores, and so on, need to get done? And are the kids willing and helpful on the homestead, or does it take convincing? Well, she is more than right. Everything can't always get done. And so my priorities are animals first, because horses, cattle, chicken, whatever animal you have, they don't know what day of the week it is, or if it's a holiday or whatever, they need to be cared for. So those always get top priority. So chickens and dogs. And then anything having to do with the kids takes the next priority. And then from there, I just make a lot of lists and I set a schedule. And I follow some cleaning channels that have motivational cleans and those sort of things. And so as far as the house goes, I like to schedule it. Like on Monday, I do a certain chunk of my house. On Tuesday, I do something different. And then I try and make myself do an hour of outside stuff every day. So whether that's something with the animals or the yard or cleanup, or taking Roberto on a walk or whatever it is. I fail at that a lot because it's rained so much lately. And then I like to set a timer and time myself and do a whole hour within the house every day that are just, they're thankless things, making beds, sweeping the floor, cleaning up, and so on. And that is pretty much how I prioritize everything. So whatever day of the week it is tells me what area of my house to be working on, and then just trying to stay on top of all of it. Oh, the second part of that question was, are my kids helpful? I think the best video that shows the truth of who my kids are was the gardening video that we recently put out. And Caleb had gone to weld for someone and was just getting home, and Cody was inside doing the kitchen and some other inside chores, and Aaron had started helping me pull the potatoes. And by the second row, Caleb had gotten home, Cody had come outside to talk to us, and they just jumped in and they help with those things. Our kids have always had chores, and we knew coming here that this is a family event. And yes, kids sometimes are just along for the ride, but we call it be an active member investing in your family. So they need to be actively investing in their household, and that will make them better adults when they grow up. But yes, they're actually really good about helping out. There's certain chores that each child cannot stand, and let's face it, they're gonna have to know how to do them. So we've taught them how to do them, but instead of having these battles over certain chores, as long as they know how to do the dishes, it's really not a big deal to me if they don't do the dishes, if that kind of makes sense. So I hope that answers it. All right, good morning. It's a new day. My GoPro is having some issues. It keeps overheating and shutting off, and so I'm not quite sure what we're going to do about that. But the next question that I was answering last night before I had so many issues was, what would be something that we would have brought that we didn't bring because we didn't know that we needed? And the biggest thing that I would say is when we moved from a ranch in Colorado to Arizona, we had a lot of ranch equipment, like fin stretchers and T-post drivers, and you just name it, we had that. We didn't foresee ourselves moving to a property or living someplace where they would be important. And we ended up selling that stuff on Facebook Marketplace, and we never should have. It would have been more beneficial to have tamping bars and all of the different things that we got rid of here in Alaska, building a homestead, than say a set of sheets or towels or even a dresser. So those things we could have easily gotten up here. The things that are very expensive, we had sold a while back, and those are the items that we regret, because you would not believe the amount of times we go to do something and someone goes, where's whatever tool it is? And we're like, we sold that years ago. So that would be my suggestion, is anything that you own that has to do with farming, ranching, homesteading, gardening, the whole 9 yards, and you plan on moving here, make room for that. Don't make room for silly things like paperwork that you don't know if you're ever going to need. So that's my suggestion. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap 2 questions into one. What brand of stove and refrigerator do you have? What are my favorite kitchen items? And then someone else asked me, like, what are my must-have kitchen items? So I'm gonna wrap those together. The range is a GE in the color matte black. The refrigerator we got off Facebook Marketplace before we even had the cabinets or anything was installed, and it's on the fritz. So when it goes out, we will get a refrigerator that matches the range. Our cook stove is a JA Roby. We got it from Obadiah's. JA Roby is made in Canada. They have EPA rated cook stoves. So depending on where you are in the country, the world, the continent, you may be required to have a certain kind of stove. So make sure you check that out. And JA Roby happens to be one of the lines that has the EPA rating, and you can put in a lot of different places, but make sure where you're at. But again, Obadiah's for all that. And they have hundreds of wood cook stoves to choose from. You call them, they can help lead and guide you depending on your square footage, what you're looking to do with it, what services you need through that stove, the whole 9 yards. Must-haves when you have a homestead or a property like this, or you do the kind of cooking that I'm doing in your home kitchen in maybe a neighborhood or apartment. The must-haves are good pots and pans. My biggest recommendation is, over your lifetime, you could buy cast iron, enameled cast iron, those sort of pans, and they will last you your entire life if cared for, and then you can pass them on. They become an inherited item by someone else, and you never have to replace those pans. The thing is I have wasted a ton of money over the years on pots and pans that were just the it item, and I've had all sorts of brands, whether it's the Rachel Ray or I forgot his name, but I've gotten them at Costco or Sam's Club or Target, you know, you name it. We've had the pots and pans. They do not last. So you are better off buying one pan, the very, very best pan that you can purchase, than you are buying lots of pans throughout your life. Of course, that doesn't include stock pots and some other things. That's a whole nother world on its own. But if you are young and starting out and looking, I would get you a cast iron, and I would get you an enameled cast iron Dutch oven. Those would be my gifts to you. So gift yourself that if you are in a position that you can. The other thing when it comes to kitchen things that we keep is be really, really harsh when you're making a move like this, and even in that homestead kitchen, because you don't want so many things in your kitchen that you can't find anything and you have stuff taking up space that you're not using. So be really, really picky have only the knives you're using, have one set of silverware, even if it's 12 or 14, don't have 15 different things. So that's kind of my recommendations and advice in the kitchen is only have what you use, get the very best that you can afford for yourself, and do with less in order to have the best. Yep. All right, one of the last questions we're gonna answer is, someone was talking about Cody hunting, and of course, our boys and my husband and our daughter, they hunt, they fish, we all fish, all of that. How did they learn? Most of you might not know, those who have asked, Cody has made a couple state junior Olympic teams for shooting sports, and then she also has several different state championships in different types of shooting sports. So she prefers Olympic style. So she learned that. I don't know if it was an accident or how he came upon it, but Aaron is a competitive shooter. He also holds state championships and some high rankings and those sort of things. And they go and they shoot these clay targets, and Cody would go with Aaron. It was his way of, you know, blowing off steam, all the stresses and everything, and being able to go and do all of that. And he would just take Cody because they have always been buddies. And he would come home and tell me, she is really good. And I was like, no, she's a girl. It's so bad to say out loud. But in my ignorance, yes. And then he would say, you don't understand. She is so good. We should let her pursue this. And so we did. We made some investments in her, and she has been incredibly successful at it. So it just was something that she loved and enjoyed, that she did with her father. And our boys are not competitive shooters. They've never been. They've never entered into these registered shoots or anything like that. They've just been around it their whole life. And of course they were drug along, taught to do the things, but they played other sports. And our thing in our home was, as long as they're doing something, we're gonna support whatever it is, but they needed to be out and active, whether they're playing an active sport or a league or whatever it was. So that's kind of how the kids came upon it. It's a total natural desire for them. They love fishing, they love hunting. Today, literally, Caleb doesn't work today. He is out hunting this morning. Everyone else is at work or school, and they just love it. So that's kind of how it all happened. They just came upon it and they enjoy it. All right, if you've stuck around, I'm gonna answer 2 more questions before I bid you adieu for today. Earthquakes and loss of power would be someone's question. Alaska gets a lot of earthquakes, but we don't get as many, I don't think, as Hawaii. And you can kind of put an app on your phone and see where earthquakes are around the world. They do have the potential of getting really, really large earthquakes. We've had a few small ones since we have been here, but nothing that knocks stuff off shelves, any of that. The earthquake damage is part of the reason that Aaron is so well employed. So he repairs damage done to buildings from earthquakes. So there's a lot of them, but there's a lot of them in other places you might not really expect or know. And then we no longer, according to neighbors, so this wasn't the case when we got here, we don't lose power very frequently. However, we did just have, Wasilla had one of the worst winter power outages in a really, really long time. Like I've said before, some people went 10 days without power. So that was a dire situation. It was in the heart of winter, and they had to go, those who didn't have alternate heat sources such as wood had to get put in some shelter type situation. So it can be really bad. So that would be a recommendation if you plan on moving here. Do have yourself an alternate heat source that is not connected to the power grid in any way, shape, or form. So wood heat, they have oil heat here. They have a lot of options. So do your research and figure out a way to heat your home in the event you don't have power. What would our recommendations be for someone who wants to move to a homestead? Well, it would be hone your skills wherever you're at. Going from Colorado, where we had our skill level was at its peak, I think, and then we dropped that skill level off. When we knew we were making this move, we diligently started working on our cooking skills, smoking skills, canning, bread making, all of the things that were going to be part of this homestead and this life. We started reusing those skills and making them kind of come to the forefront of our brain, if you will, instead of just launching ourselves into it and going, oh crud, I forgot how to do this, or I forgot how to do that. So I did everything from got raw milk, made cheese, sourdough, canning, prepping. Aaron and I tried so many like jerky recipes and sausage recipes and so on, so that when we got here and say we get a big moose, you don't want to turn a bunch of that into a jerky or a sausage you've never tried. You want to know what that recipe is going to be so that you aren't wasteful when you do get the opportunity to do those things. So start small. If you want to learn to can or make something, go get a small amount of it at your local grocery store. Learn how to do that so that when the time comes that you've grown maybe a huge harvest of peppers or onions or tomatoes or whatever it is that you've now grown, know what you're going to do with that when you get to your homestead. And those are great skills to have no matter where you're at, even if you're not moving to a homestead anytime soon. Learn and hone those skills no matter where you're at. All right, finally, the last question we're gonna answer for now, otherwise this would go on forever and ever, is favorite foods. So some of the family's favorite foods that they've said is number one, bread. Most of us love bread. We love homemade bread. We love it in all shapes and sizes. We like the big, soft, fluffy loaves and the artisan loaves and the different flavors and the whole 9 yards. The other thing is Aaron's favorite meal is tostadas or barbecue. He makes the barbecue, but I make him homemade tostadas. One of them is Swedish meatballs, is actually one of the favorite meals around here. For Cody, I make her a pasta that has butternut. It has butternut squash and bacon and some other things in it. She loves that. Sweets and desserts. Cody is probably one of the best cookie makers ever. She makes amazing cookies, so she loves to do that as well. But for me personally, the thing that just gets me excited is new and different and trying new recipes and honing my skills. I love to make breads. I love the artistry of it. I love the feel of it. So anything in that realm, even, you know, you name it, cinnamon rolls, bagels, all of those things I've made this week, is what we enjoy. So there you have it. Those are some of our favorite foods and favorite things to make. All right, wow, thank you for sticking around all the way to the end. I hope we got to most of your questions, or at least we answered a version of the question that you asked. I do appreciate all the submissions and you being interested in what we have going on our homestead. If you're new around here and you're just wondering whether you should stick around for a bit, the answer is yes, of course you should. And you can do that by hitting that subscribe button. When you ring the bell, you get notified that we have posted a new video. When you give us thumbs up and leave comments, all those things help our channel to grow, and we greatly appreciate that. I do hope that you have a super blessed week. If you have any other burning questions, go ahead and leave them. I'm pretty good at getting back in the comment sections and having an active conversation with those that are on the channel. Thank you for being part of it. Find something to be grateful for. Enjoy your week, and I will catch you in the next video.